Good afternoon, everyone.
Yes.
I'd like to call the December SMAC meeting to order. We have one excused absence, Nicola. So may I have a motion to accept her absence? There's a David for a second. Josh, all in favor? Opposition? No. Approval of the minutes? Yes. Okay, I guess that's your call. So just one update on the minutes. On page 3, we had motions back to back. You just need to add that there was a motion to reconsider. So it doesn't look like we passed 2 motions back to back. On page 3, between the tie vote for 4, it says Mr. Dalton then motion to approve. Before that needs to say that there was a motion to reconsider that passed unanimously. And then we entertain the original motion. With that adjustment. Okay, Barrett, Luann, all in favor? Any opposition? No. Okay, public comment. Before we do public comment, Wayne had an unforeseen circumstance, so he's not going to be here. And Ben is here. Public comments, any online or any assignment? No. Okay, no, we're good. Okay.
Number 2 with a sign.
2 signed in? Okay, all right, so 3 minutes and.
Yeah, we have one, but he will speak at the segment when it comes up
Okay,
regarding the design manual, the gentleman in the back.
Jason, would you like to speak with the design manual?
You can wait till the main.
design, okay, yeah, very good.
I also had public comment.
Okay, all right.
Talk about the design.
Okay, there we go. Okay. Yeah, it's on you.
All right, so the SMAC FY24 work plan was approved by council since our last commission meeting, and that's included in the agenda package for you guys to take a look at. Next would be, I did meet with the sequester, Ms. Hill, yesterday to talk about the city council and planning commission updates, and just give those real quick from the back of the room. Sorry about that. Not too many cases and no new cases or cases that we haven't talked about, which is good. At the December 5th council meeting, which was this past Tuesday, they talked about Z3523, which is a rezoning case at near Gorman Street and David Ferry for 17.8 acres. And that was actually referred to a council committee, and Z22 was near that on Sherwood Road. That was deferred until the 2nd January council meeting, and then there's a case at planning commission. We'll get into the details of these cases right now. Good. So for Z3523, secondly, 0 Gorman Street. It's basically, if anybody knows the area of Gorman Street at David Ferry, it's behind the Food Line Shopping Center right there. At kind of where Gorman Street intersects Walnut. Next slide, please. And what they're looking to do is to rezone 17.9 acres from currently conservation management to RX3 conditional use, which RX3 essentially means they can build a 3-story building, and it can be a fairly dense building. So they're looking at like a affordable housing apartment project right now. There's floodplain, as you can see in blue there on the western and kind of where the property L or I guess J is back to the west there and the northern edge. Conditions for the case would actually prohibit any disturbance of the floodplain, even ones that would be allowed by code. And there were other conditions to allow for greenway trails at service, but to keep the convention or to keep the service out. The PEJ is actually, or the Department of Environmental Justice have come out not in support of this case, and they were actually at the council meeting on Tuesday night to express their concerns. They're worried about having affordable housing this close to a floodplain, and as I said, this will be further discussed at the Council's Growth and Natural Resources Committee, January 23rd. Just for anybody that that doesn't know about the council committee, it's a little more of an informal context where the counselors and audience can kind of discuss the case and things like that. They're looking to see if any other conditions can be made to strengthen the case. I will say the southern portion of that site, they have some conditions for additional buffering from the south as well, which will essentially make the only buildable portion in the upper northern portion where you see all the topo. So, any questions on this case?
Is it Greenway across this property?
Greenway is on a creek and a parallel along the creek.
I had an opportunity to go walk this with some folks, with PEJ and some other folks, and I thought this was a really interesting case. I mean, it was clear that topographically it would be a challenge, and I know that I think PEJ's concerns are really legitimate, that this is a low income block area in the first place, so it's, you know, on DEQ's community mapping system as an underserved block. It's already flood prone. I know it's on that road, Gorman Street, is on Raleigh's flood maps as a floody area. So I think it'd be interesting to see what they could do stormwater wise to really address the issue of adding more volume to that channel there and contributing to flooding issues. So I think that was PJ's comments were right on.
And I will say, the council did ask for some research from the planning department about the history of the conservation management zone and how it got there. In my little history, which I'm not in the planning department, so I'm not graded. That was on conservation management back in 1974. So it's been that way for quite some time. And conservation management essentially means you can't put anything on the property. It was brought up during the discussions that you could conceivably clear the lot and still be allowable under conservation management, but you wouldn't be able to develop it once you cleared it. So there was some back and forth about why would you ever clear a lot if you could develop it. So, we can talk about it more at the January meeting, but if the commission would like to send someone to that GNR meeting in January 23rd, that's something to think about as well. Because the council may have questions or concerns from the commission, but that's up to you.
Did they completely conceptual plans or anything?
No, they usually don't every zoning, but it's like a master plan, they don't usually commit to any conceptual plans that once. Which kind of segues perfectly into the next case.
So it's conditional zoning right now, not PD.
Correct, it's just a conditional use zoning, so the only way they do a site plan will be a PD, like a PD or master plan, like a plan development district. I still use master plan and PD interchangeably, I apologize. All right, next slide. So our next case is like half a mile away down Walnut Creek at Trailwood Drive and a little south of the intersection of Trailwood and David Fairner. Next slide. And it is two properties on Trailwood. One is almost completely in the FEMA floodplains, as you can see. And then the second smaller parcel is highlighted in yellow there. And that's out of the floodplain. And currently there is a planned development district on this property that was from the mid-2000s, I believe, for essentially putting 12 single family lots on this property. And the applicant owner would like to change that to an R6 zoning. And they would essentially like to mass their density on that non-floodplain area there on the high side, for lack of a better term. There is a condition now to completely preserve 6 acres of the floodplain that's on site, but there's about 7 acres of floodplain there. They want to do some wiggle room for like greenway connections and any ground level use parking they would use like that, which is currently allowed under city code use to not change the topography in there. They can use it for parking.
You can pay for the floodplain.
Correct. I mean, you would have to do like some more quality regulations, but as long as you don't change the topography of the floodplain, you can do it for parking.
Is the 0.2% 500 years?
Or
is that-
that's all. Yeah.
Okay.
They did cap their density at less lots than R6 would allow, closer to like an R4 density. And they're looking, and they did show some conceptual drawings, and they're looking to do like a townhome type project, like a three-story townhome project. The neighbors concerned, so the neighbor to the south there, you see, if you've ever driven on Trailwood Drive, it's very, for lack of a better term, rural, like there's almost like acre lots out there with no curb and gutter on Trailwood or anything like that. And so the neighbors to the south are worried about having basically people looking into their property, essentially. And so they've got some conditions for a larger buffer on that southern side. But some of the neighborhood concerns were still that even though they're showing the conceptual plan, which like I said, they're not bound to a site plan and rezoning, they were worried that there weren't enough conditions to ensure it will be like a townhome type product like that and not apartments or something like that. So, interesting case, and they do have a fairly strong GSI condition as well. It says they're going to treat a percentage of their impervious with GSI, either fire retention or impervious pavement. So this was deferred to the second council meeting in January, which is the 1/16/24 council meetings in the afternoon, to try to hammer out if they can zero in on conditions that will kind of lock them into what their conceptual design is now. And I'm sure there'll be more meetings with the neighbors as well, between the developer and the neighbors. So once again, if you'd like to, we can talk about it at the January SMAC meeting, if you'd like to have representation at that council meeting, to kind of be there. PJ has not weighed in on this case. All right, next. And the next one is off on the other side of town, in the northwest section of town, on Strickland Road in the Salt Lake watershed, Z4023. Go ahead, next slide. This is a case where they are rezoning 16 acres from R4 to R10. The odd part is that they just rezoned from R1 to R4 back in 2021, and now they're going to come back in to go to R10. And this would potentially allow for more density and apartments in Falls Lake watershed, which per council policy right now is not allowed, and that's based on a Raleigh water concern about Falls Lake as well. So they have concerns about this. This is going to the December 12th planning commission meetings. So it's not even to the public hearing process. It's still the planning commission. And just for everybody's knowledge, what will happen, the planning commission will talk about it at the 12/12 council meeting, which is next Tuesday, and they will either send it to council with the recommendations for public hearing, or they'll hold it till January, because like the city council, the planning commission does not have a second meeting in December this month for the holiday break. So that's kind of where that is, and Raleigh Water and Raleigh Stormwater as well will be attending the planning commission meeting on Tuesday, weigh in on this project. But it is right behind a Harris Teeter shopping center, which if you may know the area at Strickland and Leesville, and the shopping center actually drains to the south, so outside of Falls Lake, and this would drain to the north into Falls Lake. So any questions on it?
I also had an opportunity to walk this one recently with Councilmember Harrison and some neighbors, and I wonder, so one thing that I noticed was the evidence of stormwater issues from that shopping center already in the southern portion of that property. I know the only marked blue line stream is in the northern portion, that tributary of Upper Barton Creek or Lower Barton Creek, but there's a pretty serious evidence of like what looks like an ephemeral stream and like scouring and a lot of runoff coming from that mall in the southern portion of the property. Just walking around in that forest, the topography is wild because of the stormwater runoff coming from that impervious area. So one thing I wonder is just whether the city kind of considers existing stormwater flooding issues before, in the context of approving new rezonings.
Yeah, and it should be noted in our work plan committee. Definitely take a look at that. I'm happy to help you find exactly where you saw it. You could take a look at it.
Yeah.
We talked about this one last time. Is there only access from that other road, or they proposing to have? access.
The last time I saw it was probably 2021, when they had a conceptual plan, they were getting access to all that residential street, which was a lot of neighborhood concern. They did their so much across the buffer, and they were gonna leave a sort of portion undisturbed with the 2021 case.
Okay.
I'm not sure where that stands now with this case.
I believe the new proposal is to have one road coming from Strickland, and that would be the only access to the development, which would be in the northern portion of the property. So that's another resident concern, is that the Strickland access would be pretty tricky for people, and it would be totally disconnected from the other neighborhoods as well. And that northern portion is where all the, Barton Creek kind of flooding, and there's like a wetland area there too. So it's just a tricky, topographically, it's a tricky spot.
And if you've ever driven here, it would be odd to have the driveway right there on Strickland, coming around that bend, so.
Yeah.
But I'm not in traffic, so I won't say anymore. But that was pretty much, the updates, cases of interest. I will keep you updated of January meeting as far as where this case stands with all the other two. As far as reporting to council, either in person or via email, you'll still have some chance to do it on all of these cases, so.
Could we go for a vote as a group to comment on maybe at the next meeting if we wanted to? I think that would be an efficient way to do it. Maybe next meeting.
Yeah, that'll work.
All right,
That's all I have for that. Stormwater staffing updates. Two new employees here. First one that I know for sure is here is our new senior water quality specialist, Kim Galusha. You stand up, please. Kim comes to us from Raleigh Water and brings a lot of experience in environmental monitoring. She has an associate's degree from NC State and 14 years of work experience, including with the city of Raleigh, ground and greenway system maintenance, land application permit compliance at the Deuce River Recovery Facility, and several years of sampling and technical data management experience for both groundwater and surface water monitoring activities. Kim will be a technical lead within the illicit discharge and water quality monitoring programs, as well as we make updates to meet the new permit requirements for the PDS. Welcome, Kim, on board. And then there's Eric Meyer. Mayor, sorry. I was worried about Kim's last name. I didn't even think about it. Sorry. Eric, Mayor has enjoyed a very professional career within the civil engineering space. Prior to joining the city of Raleigh, engineering services, stormwater division as a CIP project manager. His experience was initially based in the field of geotechnical engineering, primarily in the New York City and Las Vegas markets. Since coming to Raleigh in 2011, his expertise was developed with the performance and project management of special inspection and construction materials testing activities, consisting of permitting, subsurface investigations, observing foundational installation, inspections and testing of backfilling, reinforced concrete, masonry, mortar, and grout, as well as observation of structural steel, structural wood, old form steel framing. In 2023, Eric represented the Structural Engineering Association of North Carolina, the National Council of Structural Engineer Associations at their annual conference in Anaheim, California. He will be serving as their president in 2024. Eric earned his bachelor's of science degree in civil engineering from Rensselaer Polytechnical Institute. Were they anywhere close on that?
No,
Polytechnic, how about the first part? Did I get that right? Rensselaer, perfect. And then Master of Science degree in civil engineering from the University of Nevada at Las Vegas. Welcome, Eric.
thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Other topics of update. There was a memo for the East Lane Street Drainage Assistance Project that was in your agenda packet. Any questions on that? Questions? And then the draft CIP budget for FY 25. That process is getting started December 1st. If there's any questions on that, there'll be a further presentation about that at a later meeting. And then the Smoky Hollow project, which is just down here off Pigeon House, we'll have an open house on this Saturday from 10 to 2. Parks and Rec is organizing this meeting as they are managing the schematic design phase, and they have more details on their website, but that should be a pretty good event for the open house. And brief update on the participation in the One Water Summit 2023 U.S. Water Alliance Conference, which was held in Arizona. It'll be real brief because I didn't get to go, but Wayne did. So I saw some cool pictures on social media, and I know that we did talk about some of our GSI initiatives going on, and it's pretty well just received. And in fact, we got some Parks and Rec people from City of Raleigh to go to the conference with us. I hope that'll tie them into using GSI and all the projects now. So, and any notices for construction this month? We got the Billboard Hills GSI project is issuing the notice to proceed. And this month, the question is supposed to begin anytime this month, for the next time already. I don't know, has it started yet? Sorry, the GSI project in Billboard Hills, has that started yet?
Yes.
Okay, so a good start. And then the Millbrook Exchange, Park Street Repair Project. The notice to proceed was issued in November. Hopefully, construction will begin, has begun already, perfect. And then the Western North Ridge Stormwater Systems Improvement Project. I think we did. Second?
Yeah, it's January,
January, okay, perfect.
January.
All right. Well, that's all I have for staff updates.
Okay. Any questions for Ben? Okay, Sally?
Thank you. So I'm here this afternoon to give you an update on the city's stormwater design manual. As was noted earlier, we have several folks in attendance today who wish to comment on this. I understand you also received at least 2 emails about this topic. And I will be addressing some of those points in today's presentation. So this is a brief agenda today. I'm going to talk about the status. I'm going to give you a big overview of the comments, talk about changes we've made based on those comments, and then I'm going to go over some of the comments that we've received and acknowledged but have not made changes in response to those. Then I'm going to talk about the proposed UDO text changes, which complement the manual, and then we'll talk about schedule. So at the beginning of September of this year, a draft version 3 was made public on the website, and we solicited comments for a month. We have been working on that draft. We have done a red line version of that, which we will provide you after this meeting. And that was sent out to everyone who commented on the version 3. So the red lining just shows the changes that have been made since version 3. Last Friday, we met with the Home Builders Association in response to their request for a meeting. And I will note we have met with everyone who has requested a meeting. But the meeting last Friday was to look at the red lines, and I think is resulted in some of the comments today, which is why I mentioned that. And then yesterday I sent out 4 additional red line drafts, and there was 1 remaining. That's what this slide shows. So the 2 comments that had the most, the 2 chapters that had the most comments were chapter 2 on site development requirements. Most of those comments came from folks who work with infill development or small builders. And then chapter 4, as well as some citizens and homeowners. And then chapter 4 on conveyance design, we got a lot of comments from the engineering and design community. This is an overview. On the left, you can see the number of comments we received based on the chapter. And then on the right, you can see blue is citizens, red is designers, green is the Home Builders Association, which is a mix of builders and designers. And then we also got comments from industry groups and pipe manufacturers and that sort of folks. So I'm going to go through similar to what I did last time and talk about some of the individual changes, things that have changed in this red line version as compared to version 3. So first, I'm going to speak a lot about the lot grading plan. This is in chapter 2. This is a new requirement. It was introduced with version 1 of the manual. We have been refining it since version 1. The main purpose of the lot grading plan is to address infill development. It's probably one of the things that we received the highest number of citizen complaints about is the lot-to-lot drainage that occurs with infill development. And so we knew that that was something that needed to be addressed in this manual. We have been iteratively working on how to address that. So some of the changes that we've made with this red line draft is we got some great comments about it not being clear what would make a lot grading plan approvable versus disapprovable. And we do want that to be clear. So we've given 5 options, and I'm going to recommend a 6th of what would be a technique that would make it an approvable plan. That's on the next slide. We had in there a 10-foot setback for downspout discharge, and we've removed that based on the other options. And then we've responded to some feedback about the submittal requirements, what needs to be shown on the plan, and tried to refine that. The other thing we've done in chapter 2 is we've clarified that the maximum 3-to-1 slope is not prohibiting, say, retaining walls or steep slopes that are stabilized via another method. So the options that we have put into the new draft regarding infill development are one that if it was under 800 square feet of new impervious area, that we would not require the plan. And that basically would allow people to build a deck or, do some small improvement to their house without, or even do an ADU without doing the lot grading plan, but it would require it for a new house, which was really the situation that we were most concerned about. We're also saying if the flow discharges to the right of way, directly to a stream meeting the buffer rules, or to an existing pipe system, that those are all acceptable resolutions with an approvable plan. We've also said that if it flows to a vegetated area that meets the state, we've put in the state requirements for disconnected impervious surface. So basically, if someone's downspouts flowed into a vegetated area that was not very steep and was long enough, that would be an option. That's probably an option more on larger lots and less on some of the small, very dense lots that we see. We're also putting an option for dry wells, for downspouts to go to dry wells. We did not initially add rain gardens as an option, but based on the feedback we've gotten from other commenters, we plan to add that as an option. And then the final option would be to obtain a downstream discharge easement from the downstream property owner. We understand that that would be very difficult, but that is an option. All right, I'm moving on to chapter 4, which is the conveyance design chapter. One of the comments we got was about we are now requiring existing systems on site to be upgraded and things in the adjacent right of way. We got comments that shouldn't apply to development of all scales. So, for example, if somebody is adding a deck, they shouldn't have to upgrade a pipe in the right of way. So we've clarified, we've used tier 3 site plan is defined in the UDO, and that's essentially when someone is redeveloping an entire site. So like a commercial redevelopment or a small, like a subdivision would count. We've made a number of technical updates in terms of pipe standards and how you connect pipes to each other and the bedding and the trench width and that sort of thing. You may recall we are adding a stormwater conveyance permit with this design manual. And that includes information in the design manual about when you need a permit, how you do as-built drawings, and the inspections associated with that. And so CCTV inspection is required for most small pipes. There was another good comment was pointed out to us that we didn't include what passes inspection. So we've added that, what rating would we needed to successfully pass inspection. We've also added a bridge inspection for pipes over a certain size and allowed laser profiling as an alternative to manual testing for plastic pipes. And in chapter 7, we got some comments about that there's times when retaining walls need to be in drainage easements, and we agree with that, and we have allowed more situations per the manual without requiring a design exception. We have some other things that we're going to do in response to these comments that don't fall into changing the language in the design manual. So the first is that we are agreeing that we will coordinate with planning and development as they have an innovation team that is working on changing their forms. We will, stormwater and other departments are part of that change process. So we will also be working with them as we settle what the requirements are for in that lot grading plan and other aspects of the manual, that we will work to update those application forms and instructions to applicants. We also got comments from citizens that it was difficult to understand the manual. You may recall in September, I talked about homeowners are not our target audience for the manual. For the most part, the manual is targeted at registered designers. But we do want citizens to understand what the regulations are. And so we are planning to work on website updates that will explain the changes and explain the regulations in effect. And then this is a kind of a very specific one, but we will be updating our plan reviewers SOP to be clear that this is people commented on this, that if you're redoing a single family house lot and you're leaving if the driveway is concrete and you're leaving it and not touching it, it doesn't have to be a limited disturbance. So now I'm going to get into the comments that we did not address. And I can speak briefly to why we did not make changes in response to these. So the lot grading plan, as I said, it has a star next to it because it was a frequently commented item. And we got some comments that it shouldn't be needed for small lots. As I shared earlier, this is addressing one of the most common complaints that the city receives. So we do not intend to make a lot size threshold. We're going to make an added impervious threshold, but not a size of lot threshold. This is, I would say, the area, it's my understanding in speaking with various folks, particularly with the Home Builders Association, this is the area that causes great concern, and that where we feel that the staff feel that there is room to adjust the requirements we want to meet the objectives in terms of protecting homeowners while making it feasible requirements for small home builders that do not have a large impact on their cost of operation. The second comment we got on chapter 2 that we didn't address was that GSI should be required for folks who want to increase their percent impervious on an infill lot. So we currently have two ways that that there's a table of impervious area limits for, essentially for infill development. And it varies from 24% to 65%. And if a builder wants to exceed that percentage, there's two methods currently given. One of those is GSI. So we're not requiring GSI, but it is one of the two methods allowed. We got some very specific comments on the hydrology chapter. We made some, considered decisions backed up by other technical documents in terms of which methods to allow. And then in terms of future conditions, that's a best practice to consider. That basically we've given factors based on zoning that are considered during drainage design or flood studies or that sort of thing. We had some frequent comments in terms of the conveyance chapter, and those are some of the starred ones. One comment that we got from a couple of folks that we should allow pumping stormwater. That is something that the staff feels very strongly about, that it should not be allowed. Our experience is that there is not enough attention and maintenance, operation and maintenance given to stormwater systems that would support them being based on something like a pump that requires frequent maintenance. We do not allow conveyance pipes under building. There are some existing, but that's not something we currently allow. There's one circumstance where we allow it, which is that we allow stormwater control measures to be under non-residential buildings. But in that case, it's a stormwater control measure serving only that building. So it's that building owner taking on that risk. We would certainly be very opposed to any situation that would have, say, homeowners having pipes under their houses. So then one of the most frequent things that we got is a change. Not necessarily, it appears like a small change, but will affect some designers. Right now, our design manual requires sizing pipes to the 10-year storm, but it isn't specific about what that exactly means. And so we are clarifying that means the hydraulic grade line, which is, you can think of as being the wall level, be below the top of the pipe. Some people currently interpret it to be below the ground surface, which pressurizes the pipe and requires other considerations in terms of the type of pipe and the connections between the pipes and that sort of thing. It is general best practice to have the HGL below the crown of the pipe. We understand there are circumstances where there might be unique conditions on a site that might require this other situation, but we have decided that those would need to pursue a design exception rather than being allowed directly by the manual. The next most commented on item is about it's about gutter spread, or how much room water can take up in the road based on how far up from the curb it can go, which affects how frequently inlets are placed. And currently the city's standard is the 2-year design storm. And that's different than what the pipe is sized for. So we are looking at making that match. So having the 10-year be for both. That is would increase probably significantly the number of inlets. And we have gotten a lot of feedback about that is too many inlets, or that this requirement is too stringent. But we have kept it as is. We have also gotten some comments regarding our our specifications for pipe bedding and how pipes are connected, and about the requirement for CCTV inspection. And some folks have said that shouldn't apply to private pipes, so pipes that are either that are on private property upstream of a road right of way. And we had a couple of people comment, why should that be in the city's purview? And what we would say to that is that it's in the interest of protecting public safety. It's similar to, why does the building code apply to a private residence? That there is a role of local government to oversee the construction in that private arena to protect the public who may not be versed in the technical aspects. We got a couple comments on the stormwater management calculations. One was about publishing the list of documented flooding locations. Ben, you want to speak to why that we can't do that?
Yeah, and this kind of goes back to that one of our sources for documented structural flooding is our flood insurance claims. And we are prohibited by law from publishing those claims in a public setting. So that's kind of staff's issue with that. And I've discussed with our attorneys, but have not had a great firm response back about other documented flooding locations, like the implication of sharing that on the website or something. Like that open the city up to any sort of liability for people saying they were making it hard to sell their house or something like that. And personally, I'm a little bit worried that if we start publicly sharing documented flooding locations, people will stop coming to us with flooding concerns, and I would hate to kind of see that happen. They don't want us to be put out on our website, but that's kind of where that's going.
Yeah, we do want designers to know that we will, if they contact us, we're happy to share that and share the information about where a concern is based on like cross street or something like that in advance of them completing the design. We've also gotten comments about the definition of the common plan of development. We have actually used exactly the definition that the state has, and we were required to do that. So we understand that it is very broad, but that was a state requirement. Some other comments that we got in the SCM design chapter, we got comments about pumping stormwater. We allow that for rainwater harvesting systems, but not for other SCMs. We did not previously have very specific requirements about freeboard or the amount of space between the water and the top of an embankment. We have added those specific requirements. And we got some concerns that it would increase size or cost. We are clarifying to folks, we are defining embankment based on the Natural Resources Conservation Service definition as it's 3 feet of water against a fill slope. So this wouldn't affect things like most bioretention or other smaller practices. We also have included more stringent requirements for SCMs under buildings, which I had mentioned before, and for retaining walls used in stormwater control measures. Those are both currently things we allow. We are going to continue to allow them, but we are asking for a signed and sealed letter from the structural engineer who is designing the retaining wall or the building. And the reason that we're requiring that is that typically we are receiving a report signed by the landscape architect or the civil engineer, who is typically not the design professional involved in the retaining wall or the building design. And we want to make sure that they're aware of the saturated conditions that might be caused by those.
Sal, I was talking with the geotechnical engineer record.
We actually mentioned a geotech engineer as well. In terms of the list of approved SCMs, we did get a comment that rain gardens should be allowed there. And so we do, bioretention is allowed. And the comment got to like that the bioretention standards are typically aimed not at a single family residence. They're They require fairly deep soil media and that sort of thing. And also required by the state when we are doing regulatory SCMs to use their minimum design criteria. So we have to use that. We can't back off on that criteria when it's related to regulatory compliance. Now, for the rainwater rewards program, yes, that could be a different standard that doesn't meet the regulatory requirement. We got a lot of comments about the new requirement for a downstream discharge easement. This is another topic that I would say is something that has been a noted problem in the city and that has to be addressed with this manual. And this is the situation of there's maybe say a row of houses and a slope behind them that is forested. That comes in for development. Under current requirements, they could meet all of our requirements and treat it with a stormwater control measure, have it go to a level spreader that spreads it out over a 100-foot swath. And then that goes to the back of those houses. And so what this would require is that the designer or the developer secure a way to get that flow through that row of houses. Just, this is one example, rather than discharging directly to them. And we understand that that is not going to be easy. This is going to apply most sites are not going to be in this situation because they're going to have, say, a stream running through them that they could discharge to, or they're adjacent to a right of way that they can discharge to. But there is a small number of sites this applies to. And again, this is being protective of homeowners and other private property owners. We got some comments about the swale width. So one note is we actually have reduced the swale width, the swale easement width, in some cases by taking away the requirement for an erosion hazard setback. We also, this 25-acre is aligned with other things, like that's where the need to do some type of flood study kicks in. It's also sometimes lines up with where streams begin to form. And so we look at this, we're requiring a 50 foot on each side for swales with more than 25 acres of drainage. We understand that that is large, but it's intended to be protective of water quality as well as protecting against flooding. Also, we don't see very many swales with that big of a drainage area. We also got a comment that we should be allowing other things in easements, and those do not. I think in part it was a misunderstanding of the purpose of the easements, that we can't provide access to the reason the easement exists, like having a pipe, if there's permanent things in that easement. We do allow fences when they meet certain conditions.
These comments are pretty strong, too stringent, too expensive, unrealistic. I mean, what's your reaction to that? And other municipalities that have these same requirements either across the state or nationwide?
Yeah. So I think we have partly addressed this comment because we have addressed it from the standpoint, there was the concern that this would apply to infill development. And so that if somebody wanted to discharge all the downspouts from the house, that they'd have to go get a downstream drainage easement from the next house. And that's one of the reasons we have those other options available, so that it's not applying on the smallest scale, but we are still applying it on the, say, subdivision scale or big commercial property scale. Ben, can you speak to the other part of the question about what other jurisdictions are requiring?
Yeah. So as far as the downstream easements and that sort of thing, there are not a ton of local municipalities that are doing things like that. And that's why after kind of discussing with the homeowners association, this would kind of be like the last option they would have. That's why I'm kind of outlining kind of with their water. There are other municipalities that are outside North Carolina that are doing things like this, but it's would be done in the state, so. So that's really, that was one of the reasons that staff was willing to kind of pull back on. Because before it was, every site was gonna have to do some sort of downstream discharging, thing like that, so that's we kind of pull back, look at other options, and very much appreciate the help of brainstorming with the homeowner association, kind of take away to kind of achieve the same goal when we get there, but this would be a stringent option, and that's like correct, because anytime you're doing development, working with a downstream property owner is not ideal at all. But,
Yeah, and I would say some of these comments were from before we made those changes.
Oh, correct, that's helpful.
We did get a comment in the ESC chapter about that turf shouldn't be allowed as a stabilization practice, and we think this was probably a misunderstanding. When someone constructs artificial turf, we actually consider it to be impervious area unless it has been designed per the state requirements for permeable pavement. So in general, stabilizing with artificial turf would be treated the same as stabilizing with concrete unless it has met those specific requirements. And some overall comments that didn't specifically fit into one chapter. We got some comments on that there's an interest of citizens and designers to see, you know, and part of this goes back to the frustration with infill development, but to see rain gardens being integrated with home building. And I will note, if it's above and beyond regulatory requirements, it can go through the R3 program and be constructed at the time of development. There was also a comment that the amount of impervious allowed, again, for the infill situation should be lower in R6 and R10. That's not something we are taking on with this chapter, with this manual. That if folks feel strongly about that, we would encourage them to take that to planning commission or a venue like that. We also got a couple of comments that regulations should be based on a larger design storm than we currently base them on. And I believe these comments were really aimed at the stormwater management requirements versus, say, the drainage design, pipe design requirements. And this is, so many, the water quality requirements for stormwater control are based on either the 1-inch storm or the 90th percentile storm, which is close to the 1-inch storm. And I used to work for a nonprofit that one of the things we did was help write design manuals. And the reason the 90th percentile storm was chosen as the metric is because at some point you have to optimize, and that if you built a fire retention big enough to treat all of the rainfall that occurred in a year, it would be enormous. And so the compromise was, let's treat 90% of the rainfall that occurs in a year. And likewise, with the runoff control requirements, it's an optimization thing of, you know, we could require control for the 1,000-year storm, but that would, you know, that might not be worth it. Likewise, we could control for the 25-year storm, but it would increase the how much land got dedicated to stormwater controls, which would obviously have an economic impact. It would probably also impact some of the like zone 2 buffers and things like that that are being otherwise not developed. One of the reasons we use the 10-year storm for runoff control is that matches up with the design of the pipe system. And so one of the things it does is make sure that as flow is coming off a site, there's capacity in the downstream pipe system for it, which it doesn't reduce our runoff control requirements don't reduce the volume of flow, but they keep that pipe system, keep that flow in the pipe system. And so that, you know, that's one of the reasons. Ben, do you want to add anything to that? Now I'm gonna transition into the UDO text changes that are proposed. So, I mentioned there was two methods for exceeding the amount of impervious on a lot. One is a GSI device. Currently, the other is something that we've been calling the downstream flood analysis. And it's been our experience that it can't be done at every property because there's not appropriate analysis points. We also find that for people who can afford to hire an engineer, they can get more impervious area, but they don't end up having to do anything that improves the drainage conditions. And so what we're proposing is that instead of that, we put the 2 and 10-year discharge control, which would probably result in people having to do a small amount of detention on their property in order to meet that requirement. The level of engineering analysis would be similar. The next thing we'll be doing is removing references to the SCM replacement fund. I'm not sure if this has been discussed with this group yet, but a North Carolina legislative change that was made in August of this year. There was House Bill 488 prohibited us from collecting a stormwater replacement fund. We used to collect 24% of the cost of construction cost estimate, and that went into a fund to used for repair of SCMs in the future. We are no longer allowed to collect that fee, so we'll be removing references to it. We have stopped collecting payment already, but we'll remove the references in the UDO. Something we will be doing is addressing we see some issues. We want to protect homeowners and commercial property owners in a subdivision by making sure that SCMs are built correctly, and so that we're not turning over a deficient SCM to a homeowners association or commercial property owners association with problems. And one of the things we frequently see is an issue with plantings, that the timing of when you need to plant doesn't always line up with the timing of when a project wants to get their certificate of occupancy. So the way we're proposing to address that is to, instead of returning the SCM surety, which is a financial guarantee that's a time limited, instead of ending that agreement at the time of the certificate of occupancy, we would end it at the time of the first annual inspection. So it would put the builder and contractor on the hook a little bit longer, might give them a chance to use a warranty period or something like that. We also are making some changes to the SCM as-built requirements. Those are in the design manual that went out for review, and we'll just be making the UDO match that. These two items are also in the design manual, and we're making the UDO match that. We'll also be updating the ESC surety amount. Well, if you have questions about that, I'm going to ask Lauren to help. And then I believe I've mentioned that the design manual will replace both the current design manual and GILDA, the guidelines for land disturbing activity. And so there's some requirements currently in GILDA that we're going to move to the UDO. And then this is probably one of the more substantive UDO, direct to UDO text changes. So this is the difference between built area and built upon area, which is very confusing to the public, to designers, and sometimes to the reviewers. Right now, both terms are used in the UDO, and they mean different things. Built upon area is used in most of the regulations that apply throughout the city. Built area is only used in the watershed overlays, and it includes built upon area basically means impervious area. Built area means impervious area plus permeable pavement and green roofs. So other things that could be partially impervious. and partially impervious. My understanding is that the history of this is that it was intended to further limit the amount of development that could occur in the watershed overlays. We do see folks wanting to use permeable pavement, particularly in the watershed overlay districts. So if we made this change, it could slightly increase the amount of disturbed land in the watershed overlay districts. We think it's an insignificant amount, and that making this change would not be a big environmental impact, but would be very beneficial in terms of avoiding confusion. But that's the purpose of that. We are also proposing one change, not to the UDO, but to the municipal code. And this is to clarify where private pipe ownership and public pipe ownership transition. And this is really goes back to, I've heard some people say, isn't that already how it is? And it's just not in the code. But basically we would treat the pipe similar to the driveway, where let's say you have a commercial site, they have their pipe system, it comes out into the right of way and it ties into an inlet. So there's, maybe 10 feet of pipe in the right of way before it gets to that inlet. What we would be doing is defining that pipe as belonging to the private owner and being their responsibility. That's similar to how a driveway is defined, that the driveway from that development is the private owner's responsibility to the curb line, even though it is in the right of way. And that doesn't mean the city wouldn't address it if there was a sinkhole there was a public safety threat, we would go and make sure it got taken care of, but it would help define that was a private pipe all that way. We are also, lest any of you are going there mentally, be addressing the issue of allowing private pipes to come into the right of way without getting an encroachment agreement. So that is, in both of those things would hopefully happen at once. All right. I'm going to briefly talk about process. So we are here at SMAC. We're asking you to request an authorization for change from City Council. My understanding is when City Council authorizes a change, they typically send the proposed change to the Planning Commission Text Change Committee and the Planning Commission to consider it and make a recommendation. That it would typically go back to City Council for a public hearing and we would hope approval. We are, based on comments we've gotten from folks involved with the Home Builders Association and including in some of the emails you received, we are proposing to move the date that we take this to council to request authorization. The reason for that is it would allow some additional review of those red line drafts by any party and some additional time to work out particularly those items in chapter 2 related to the lot grading plan. So this is showing that this was showing our original timeline that I presented to you in September. It shifted slightly with the cancellation of the November meeting, but it didn't impact when it went to Text Change Committee. This is our proposed timeline that would potentially impact the effective date. In terms of next steps for this group, I didn't put it on here, but please consider that timeline request. We will ensure you get the red line drafts tomorrow during the business day. Please contact myself or Ben Brown if you have any questions or concerns or comments. And then if you approve a change to the timeline, then be prepared to request authorization at your next meeting. And then just as a reminder, there's several people who are interested in speaking.
Your recommendations, it's actually first not, first authorization today, but to wait until the January meeting. Correct, correct. Trying to essentially be deferring it. Yeah. Based on what I talked to Wayne, I think about. Yeah, subject to that. Yeah, it's just state. Okay, all right. And then we have, some comments. I don't have the list. I saw your hand first. Just request 3 minutes and move to the next.
Well, that Sally knows a lot of stuff, doesn't she? I don't keep up with all of it. I'm a builder, David Menaker, M13 Builders. Been building in North Carolina since 1975. A couple quick questions. Did everybody or anybody get my email from last night? Okay, so I'll skip over that. Second question, how many people in here have ever applied for a building permit in the city of Raleigh? Good. You know. And how many people here support Sally's recommendation or application for an extension of the time? Moving this from today to January. Everybody, I'm gonna sit down then. That's what I came here to do. Let me tell you, as long as you folks are here and wherever you go back to, because I'm not sure what SMAC is, so the silos, if you read about my silos, if you got anything to do with that, if you can influence that, it's the monkey on the city of Raleigh's back. I have had projects that the buyer, the home buyer's bank commitment expired before I could get a permit. I've been building in this city since 1996. As I said in there, I've never gotten a building permit the first time, regardless of stamped plans, stamped surveys, engineering, my input. And remember when we used to have to send out 100 letters to people within 100 feet to get that permit? It comes and it goes as our city council knee-jerk reacts to whoever had a complaint latest from an old neighborhood. We know that, we all know that, we just don't talk about it. So anything you can do to alleviate that would be much appreciated. I was here to talk about chapter 2, and as long as you kick this can down the road a little bit, we can continue to talk to Sally about that. If you have any influence on it, I'll tell you right now, the problem with chapter 2 is you can't cure stormwater with a 40 by 100-foot lot infill in the middle of a block. I served on the Kill Devil Hills Town Board in Dare County, which is a mile wide, 7 miles long, with a sound on one side and the Atlantic Ocean on the other. I have a different perspective of stormwater. Okay, when it's coming over the bypass and coming towards town hall, that's stormwater. Okay, we're not going to cure that or our stormwater issues with 40 feet of lot. And the problem we have because of the silos, as I mentioned in my presentation, but I want everybody to hear this, is zoning and this infill overlay. And the lack of flexibility in the height restrictions of the infill will run counter, I guarantee you, to everything that we try to achieve with stormwater. And trust me, stormwater is way more important than some neighbor complaining about your walls higher than theirs. And if you have a lot that's sloped like this and the house sits here, you can qualify with your sidewall, 25-foot restriction right now, and the downhill side where you need to move your water, you're not going to qualify. So now you've got a building plan that you've worked on that your client wants that makes no difference in the neighborhood as to whether or not you're a foot or two taller. And you're going to do everything you can to qualify to move this water and contain it. And you're going to have your plan kicked out with zoning by 6 inches. Thank you for your time. Good luck.
Thank you. Jason Meadows with RDU Consulting. Been in the Raleigh market generally as my career started in 2005. Predominantly serve the residential market now as more or less in-house engineering for a residential developer in Raleigh. We generally build inside the belt line, anything from townhomes and in the 300s to single family homes in the 2+ millions. So intimate experience with everything that we're talking about with the new stormwater manual. Sally has been great, and to Sally's defense, this is something that was started in 2020. So there's history here. There's a lot of history. Ben, I know, has had staffing issues, and I feel like that's why we probably have not been able to focus on getting this adopted as quick as probably would have been preferred. But Sally picked it up. And draft 3 that we're talking about now came out in September of 2023, and we started, like I said, 2020 is when this began. So the accelerated time frame for which we think this needs to be adopted, I think we need to pump the brakes a little bit. And I appreciate you guys being receptive to a little bit more time here. I've been in every single opportunity that's been given to me to provide feedback through the Home Builders Association as well as directly to City of Raleigh staff. There still are significant issues to work through. Reverend, I appreciate your question about, hey, is this somewhere else? Are we modeling another jurisdiction? Are we fixing problems? There's several regulations that I think are unfounded even today in the current manual, that even after months and months of discussions, gutter spread being one of them, downstream easements being another. I have a project now that basically couldn't be constructed. It's 36 units off of Pool Road, where we have an existing 2.5 acre site that sheet flows onto the neighbor's lot. We've done everything under the current regulations that would be required to be built. However, under the new draft manual, an additional downstream easement would be required through the neighbor's property. And if you guys have been around development at all, most of the time neighbors don't want to talk to us. They don't like us. They don't like what we're doing. They had woods that their kids played in, that was their backyard, and now we're going to build something in it. So that's probably the biggest project killer. In my opinion, there needs to be a good faith effort presented, I would say, from the development to try to pursue those easements. If the city wants to step in and provide some condemnation support for the benefit of everyone, as they say, I think we would welcome that as well. The single family ramifications, I assume some of you guys live in Raleigh, and I hope you've read this manual because it will affect every one of you. If you're planning an addition on your house, if you want another driveway pad, if you want a deck, if you want to do anything, any grading or any additional impervious in your yard, this will impact you. So please do more due diligence. I'm always willing to come and talk to you guys as a group. I've read it from front to back multiple times. So please just don't take this lightly. The last manual was in place for 20 years, and this one probably will be in place for equally as long. So we need to get it right. So please ask questions and just explore this a little bit more. The brief overview that Sally just gave you doesn't really touch on a lot of the significant issues that I think still exist. So thank you.
We're all Raleigh residents, for requirement of SMAC, that to live in Raleigh. Sure.
Hi, my name's Karen Ringe. I am a landscape designer and I design rain gardens, and just full disclosure, some of them come through you all for approval. And I cannot say enough good things about the Rainwater Rewards Program. So many of my clients all over Raleigh want landscaping, but they also have stormwater issues, and they are really excited about this. And Raleigh is far ahead of most other cities in this opportunity. And I am interested in seeing how we can make sure that there are more rain gardens and other GSIs being built. And I appreciate the changes that you have made, Sally, so much, particularly like at the downspout issue. And I cannot tell you how many clients I've had who complain they're willing to put in a rain garden, but it's really their neighbor that's the problem, because the neighbor hasn't been required to put in the rain garden. And Justin has told me many times doesn't work that way. So, in terms of the stormwater conveyance design and changing the downspout, I think the 10-foot discharge is a good idea. But I'm wondering why things can't be changed, whether it's in this or in the future, that if you're the one causing the problem, that you are required not just to disperse the downspout into a vegetative area, which could be lawn, which won't solve the problem. That water needs to go into something more specific, like a rain garden. And I have worked with builders who know that they could put in a rain garden, but they don't want to go through the hassle of the application process. So I'm wondering if in this chapter, not all where we're talking about the dispersal, can we somehow require or highly incentivize the person who is building to put in the rain garden so that you're not causing the problem for the neighbors, which is very significant. And similarly, I'm hearing that this is not the place to change the percentage of impervious. But again, I've worked with builders who are building right up to 65%. And they know there is clearly going to be stormwater impact. And again, if and I don't know how we incentivize, or if not just require, if you're building to that limit and it's really tight, that you have to put in a rain garden so that you're preventing, because, and they're getting money, you can get money from the city to do it. It really should be a no-brainer, but so I would like to see a requirement for that. Similarly, on the issue of the stabilization process, I did make the comment about our artificial turf, so thanks for clarifying that there is pervious artificial turf. Thank you for adding an encouragement of using native plants. I'd like to see that moved up to the top of the list, because that is a goal for the city of Raleigh, to not just be an option, but actually be required, particularly when we're building right up to the 50-foot buffer, which I see right in my own neighborhood. Builders are building right up to that 50-foot buffer of the stream. They should be required, if water is going to be dispersed down that bank, to put in native plants to protect the stream bank. Because I also know that that's a goal of the city, to protect our stream banks. And finally, I will add, I would be delighted to come back at another appropriate meeting with some of my colleagues to talk about ways we think we could improve the stormwater rewards program in terms of how we're designing rain gardens so that we can build more of them at less cost. Thank you.
Excuse me. Yeah,
Hey, Ben.
like you technically can't get any money from Justin to comply with the regulation. I just want to correct that from the regulation that to comply with the regulation.
The rainwater report.
Yeah, the rainwater reward. Correct. Yeah,
Well, I'm not sure what you're saying. I'm saying.
like we're not, well, because it sounded like you said that you get money from the city to build these rain gardens, not if they're for compliance with our shoreline regulations. Tied to development.
Because it's voluntary.
Correct.
But, so you're saying.
We're not
if I-
paying
if
for
I'm
somebody to
suggesting
comply.
that it be required, then they could not actually qualify for the.
Correct.
rewards program.
Correct.
Thank you.
Like the way it's set up. I mean, I'm not saying that can change, but we normally don't pay for people to.
Yeah, okay, I understand that.
Yeah.
So I'd still like to see them required.
I understand. It's not-
But, and given that.
I'm just clarifying the city money part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just clarifying the city money part. Like we wouldn't pay for somebody's private compliance.
But nonetheless, you understand,
No, go.
because it's a great program.
Yeah.
And people are right at the limit where they know they're causing the problem, and which is why that percentage of 65% in my view should come down. And I'm not against density. I want density to work to handle our growth. And this is stormwater, I mean, as you said, is one of the most important issues. We're going to keep growing, and we got to figure out how to make it work.
Thank you to the commenters. Thank you, Sally. Like you said, your comment as you're presenting that you have met with anyone who's wanted to meet. And so
Yes.
thank you and those staff, because it takes time and that's the right thing to do. So, it won't even vote on this, but it sounds like we're in agreement that we follow Sally's recommendation of moving to January timeline. Yes, very good. All right. Justin.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody.
Afternoon.
Good to see you guys again. It is, thank you. Good to see you, Karen, and thanks for those kind words about the program. Credit to the staff that support the program. It's been a busy 2 months since we last were face to face. We are currently on pace to have a record year. We've approved 17 projects to date and have 5 on the agenda today. In addition, after at the November 7th city council meeting, the city council approved the transfer of $100,000 to further fund the project or the program into the next calendar year. And we've also received positive specific feedback from 2 separate council members at both the November 7th council meeting and at the November 28th GNR meeting. So just wanted to share that in this forum. As for the 100% funding pilot program with the ARPA funding, we have reached out and been coordinating and having conversations with Wake County Public Schools about targeting some schools that are in some disproportionately impacted communities to possibly implement some GSI on those properties. And those conversations have really expanded and excited for other folks to probably bring them to you. And then lastly, I wanted to reiterate and just inform the commission that we are working with Hazen and Sawyer, outside consultant, on what we call the Rainwater Rewards Enhancement Project. They're developing some internal documents for the program, but more specifically to this commission and y'all's interest is they're helping staff review our comparison metric and bring that up to the standard of the state SNAP tool that's been rolled out. So we will have feedback and recommendations that are consult driven to share with the commission either January or February on that agenda, along with just overarching program recommendations for feedback as well. So stay tuned for all of that. Thank you, Matt. So jump right into it. We have 5 more rain gardens. I know I feel like last time I was standing up here, we had 7 rain gardens, I think. And so 2 of these are actually eligible for the 100% pilot funding per project or program. 3 are going the traditional route. This slide, trying to summarize where they all rank, all are below the nitrogen metric cap. And staff was posed with the question whether we show this slide 5 or 7 times, one at the beginning, one at the end, and one after each project, or once and then add that ranking on the water quality metric. So look for that as we go through. All of these rain gardens will have a 10-year maintenance period, same maintenance requirements as all the rain gardens that have been previously presented to the commission for review. So we'll jump right into the first project. This is Beverly Drive, Crabtree Creek Watershed. This is a 100% eligible property, pretty standard 230 square foot rain garden, capturing all the runoff off of their house and part of the driveway, located in the backyard, outside of 100-year floodplain and outside of a sanitary sewer easement that's in the back. And you can see that they've recently done work on that sanitary sewer easement. Rain garden is not going to be in that area. You can see some of the drainage area up in this home. Total cost, $16,000. Cost breakdown. And I'm going to run through these. If you need me to slow down, please let me know. I can go back and elaborate. You can see the rank, how that ranks against all previously approved rain gardens. You can see the metric once again. The limit set by the commission in February of 21 was $7,000 per pound of nitrogen. This point of reference as we move through these as well. So I want to ask, as I typically ask, would you like to review these or vote on these separately or collectively?
Let's just vote each one. Any questions? Just curious about it's 100%. Is this our first 100%? What?
Second, the commission has seen first today.
Curious.
Yeah.
You're talking about communication or something. So.
And I have more on that,
Okay.
Grant, if questions asked.
Now, motion to approve. Second. Barrett, all in favor? No opposition. Okay, let's go.
Great. We'll move on to our second 100% project. This is 2421 Birdie Drive. So the rain garden, about half the size. Going to treat roof runoff and a little bit of driveway. It's going to be in the front yard in this case. You'll notice that there is a private pipe that runs from the backyard and goes out to the street. There is no private or public easement here. The final product will lie on either side of that. They're not sure where it'll land, but it'll be outside of the footprint of that private pipe. And the pictures might tell a better story. They have a lot of room in this front yard area. The pipe is closer to that white fence. So they most likely it'll be located out of that footprint. There's no other utilities that would impede that. Price lower than the last project. fairly typical. It does require an under drain and they do have enough drop for that to function properly. Right. You'll notice, once again, the rank and it being under the nitrogen metric. Any questions for Birdie Drive? Yes, sir.
You just talk about what's smaller, even though they're small.
Sure, it goes back to how much impervious surface they're treating. So quick rule of thumb, we tell folks, and this is assuming 10 inches of ponding in their rain garden, we tell folks to account for 10% of the footprint that's flowing to it. So if they have 1,000 square feet coming to it, they're gonna have a 100 square foot rain garden, assuming that 10 inches of ponding on the surface. That is a conservative estimate where if you were to pick up that 1 inch of rain off the roof and put it in that rain garden, it would be able to handle that volume. Obviously, that's conservative, so these overperform, and that is only mutually beneficial for the property owner and the city.
There wouldn't be much benefit later.
Not from a water quality standpoint, kind of the rule of thumb is that most of the pollutants are in that first 1 inch of rain, so capturing 2 inches of rain from a pollutant removal standpoint is not cost effective.
Any other question? Motion to approve. Luann, second. All in favor?
All right, thank you. On to number 3. Glen Ridge Drive. This was actually submitted back in the summer, and we have been bringing as many as feasible to the commission for review. So this one has been in the queue for a little while. Similar to the ones we just reviewed, eligible for 75% reimbursement. That factor of 10, rule of thumb. And I might add that has been well received by both designers and applicants. It's easy for them to wrap their head around. I'm thankful that it's not like pie or something, you know, it's like explaining that concept, but yeah, so it captures roof runoff, a little bit of driveway. One thing that's unique about or special about this project is the runoff as it stands just pours into the neighbor's yard. So this will alleviate some nuisance flooding on a downstream neighbor. And also add an aesthetic function and amenity in this backyard. Price splits the difference right there between the first two we looked at, so not too far out of line. And you'll see the metrics also floating around the 4,000 pound of nitrogen over life of the project. Any questions with 3,000 Glen Ridge Drive?
Comment you made just about some of the feedback we've heard. The opportunity to oversize this to deal with the downstream situation isn't available via the current rainwater rewards regulations, right? So, or it's water quality only, so we can't deal with.
Well, and I'll jump in real quick if that's all right. I would say it's not, you'll see one that's oversized. I think it's in this slide, so it might have been when we were looking at it. But they can oversize as long as it's still cost effective. They could put in a larger one that is cost effective. What you run into is that cost metric. If it's going to cost twice this cost to install a rain garden, twice that size, your metric is going to be potentially twice this metric, and you're not going to get much. You're actually, it's probably going to be higher because you're not going to be get as much credit for removal. So that metric is great to be able to lean on if needed. And we aren't going to push back if they come back and say 300 square foot rain garden. That's fine. It just, we're going to look at the metric and then present that to y'all for that. So it's not that it's not allowed. There's just considerations if you're going to go bigger, more expensive, and maybe that answered your question or comment.
Motion to approve. Yeah. That's all in favor? Good.
All right, next project. Prescott Place. Another one of these that was, that probably could have come in July, but we just had so many projects in a day. So one of the last of the summer rain gardens. Yeah, this is an example, very large rain garden, 500 square feet. Notice their treatment area, 2,000 square feet. So this was the example out in my mind. I'm not crazy. Looking at this, it's kind of a unique configuration. They have a relatively flat area in the front of their yard between a driveway, a walking area, and an alley. They own the impervious surface that drains to it, and it's just unused space. It's got good infiltration, so they're gonna direct some downspouts to it. They're gonna capture the surrounding impervious. And this is gonna serve both, water quality benefit and, an aesthetic amenity in that space at the front of the property. So you notice pretty good price for the size. Good breakdown there, and you'll notice the metric reflects that price point in the amount of impervious, being treated. So I know I'm racing through these, but in the interest of time, any questions for Prescott Place?
Motion to approve. Carol, Wayne, second, all in favor?
All right, and final one today is Medway Drive. Crabtree Watershed, 250 square feet. Everything's pointing to the back left corner of the house, captured from how roof runoff. You'll see the area back here in the backyard. That's for the future footprint. About as straightforward as they come. You have slope that goes there anyways. Water can easily be directed to the rain garden. Breakdown in cost. And then your metric, you'll see how that compares to the other four. Nothing really remarkable to point out across these five that that I wanted to, kind of show y'all. Any questions on Midway?
Is there a simple way to explain why this one only qualifies for 75% in the Crabtree Creek watershed as opposed to the others that are 100%?
Absolutely. Policy does that. So the policy breaks down or identifies five high priority areas. And those are eligible for 90%. The rest of the city is 75%. So those five high priority areas are your two TMDL watersheds, which have been identified by the state as being impaired watersheds. So there's two. We have two water supply watersheds, Falls Lake and Swift Creek. And so those future drinking water sources, they're priority. So that's four. And then when this concept was developed, they looked at a planning overlay that captured the downtown district that was almost 100% impervious, where everything's built out. We're not gonna be able to treat runoff with UDO or through redevelopment because 100% impervious. We wanted to target that. So downtown, the two watershed overlays and the two TMDLs. So that's the 90% compared to the 75.
And then the 100%.
100% is based on several criteria, census data, and I'm more than happy to elaborate on that. And if located geographically within those areas, there's an income threshold, a rent threshold, and or a nonprofit entity can apply for the 100%.
I remember having this conversation. I'm asking, I know it's redundant, but I appreciate the clarification.
Anytime you got questions, we can go into a lot more detail if needed.
Thanks.
Happy to answer.
Anything else? Motion to approve. John, second. Matt, all in favor? Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for your support.
It looks like we're at 66,000 till end of June.
Yes, sir, Fred. Yes, sir.
And we've approved how many in the standard
So we
are?
are 17 projects for the year. Y'all just approved these, so we're up to 22 projects. Two of them are 100%. One is from the previous fiscal year, if I'm not mistaken. So I have to look back. 2 or 3 are the 100%.
That feels pretty rapid. Is that ahead of schedule?
Absolutely. Had a schedule both in.
I was about to this like.
Make sure Justin highlighted that. That's a lot.
Had a schedule in both project number and in expenditure of our dedicated fund. So thank you all.
Justin's hair's on fire.
That's our big burn off.
All right, thank you. Justin.
Good afternoon. Yeah, my name is Mani Kumar and that's Chad Webb. Chad is the program manager for the DA programs. And we are here to update you on the state of the DA program, where we are, the pending list and what we have done so far. And yeah, before I say no, I want to come and challenge this team for doing a wonderful job. Despite pandemic and the shortage of staff, they've been doing the best to catch up with the projects and deliver them in timely manner. So here's the overview of the presentation here. Yeah, I have to read this. That's the that we do the ritual every time. So the mission of the Stormwater Division: preserve and protect life, support healthy natural resources, and complement sustainable growth within the Raleigh community. And the objective of the DA program is to assist in the reducing flood hazards from urban stormwater runoff, and to help protect and improve water quality in local streams and other civic service waters. So this is the schematic of the timeline when they evolved over a period of time. So the program began in 1989, as you can see here. There's a cost share program, and there are like different components of that. So without going into the details, so from 89 to 2016 is the DA program that we have as of today. And then we got the stream stabilization program that we separated from the DA program that was end of last year. So over a span of 35 years roughly, that's what we tell you more. So again, yeah, so the city has been growing rapidly right over the last 20 years. A lot of growth, and our infrastructure they have been becoming older, right? They've been aging, the pipes, the streams, their course have changed, the erosion, the resources that need has increased. And so when we eliminated the cost share program and made it like fully 100% city funded, that was the need of the hour, right? To address the issue with the equity all across the city and to efficiently deliver the product. So that's the quick overview of the project that we have done so far. So in 2016, 70 projects have been approved by SMAC and City Council. Total allocated funds for the project has been 10.2 million, and 24 projects with the amount 3.6 million have been completed thus far. And we have a lot more numbers, so I know it's too many numbers, we have even more numbers in the following slides. We'll come back to this every question. So these are almost 30 projects, so 7 projects that's going to bid this current fiscal year. That's about 1.4 million. Then we have 18 projects that's in the design phase, and with estimated cost of 2.7 million. 5 projects in the negotiation with the design consultant. That's about 750K. So the bundles that you see here, that's one of the strategies that we have come up with to expedite the project delivery. So combining more than one project, like 3, 4, or we are even talking to the consultant to make it like 6 or 7 also, if it's possible, depending on the type of the project location. If we can combine more number of projects to even to make it attractive and more profitable for the consultant and for ourselves to deliver more projects. So that's the strategy that's what we find so far. So this is the quick overview of the pending project. So as you can see, over the last 2 years, more or less static. So the pending list has not gone up. So that means that we have been able to deliver more and more projects. So again, if you go back in 16, 17, we had to catch up. We had a list, long list from the previous program that we had to inherit it. And then we tried to deliver more projects, and the list kept going up and up, but now more steady. And in the following slides, of course, we'll talk about the strategies, how we can deliver and do all the pending projects for a period of time. So here you see from the last graph that we saw here at the end, 100. So as of now, we have 2 pending projects in the pending list. of that, 22 projects have the criticality score of 20 or less. And that scoring is based on different factors. So these are the three main factors: the emergency access, in the event of 100-year storm, in the flooding, the non-structural flooding, and then the distance of erosion from the structure. So again, it's a multi-pronged approach, that we are trying to adopt to expedite the delivery and do more number of projects basically. So, all the pending list and the project that's coming up each year. So staffing has been an issue, and, we are trying to be mindful, to have the right balance, the optimum number of staff, not to hire too many staff or too less, but the right balance. And it's hard to say like what's the right balance, because the projects, they fluctuate. But I think we need some more staff, and that's what we are trying to hire. So Chad has been working very hard, like since last 6 months. And we were not very successful in getting a senior engineer on board, but this time we tried even harder to attract more applicants from across the country. So the selecting interview end of this month, right before Christmas.
Yes, one hour.
Say 2 weeks. We're very hopeful that we got a good pool of candidates. So we should be able to recruit an engineer who can do in-house some design and then we can have the construction project. So and then we already recruited, like you met Eric, right? So Eric is here, and then one more engineer we are trying to recruit. So we will have 3 new staff both. So that will definitely increase our capacity to take on more projects. So that's the timeline again. So it's nothing new. I think I'm sure you must have seen this before. So and when we talk to the residents, they sometimes expect that, okay, you have come here, you take this SMAC, they approve, and then they do the project and, deliver it like, within a matter of months. And that's not realistic, right? We have to go through all these processes, like the design, the bidding and construction. So up till the SMAC is gone, it's like, shorter time window, but after that, it takes a lot longer. So that's on the higher side, more conservative. There's so many factors that come into play. Cooperation from the neighbors, the beneficiary and the non-beneficiary, and the negotiation. So that can prolong, and we are trying to be more mindful and see if we can't get an easement, for example, then what are the other options that we can explore and do the project. So that's what we discussed with the different stakeholders and the design consultants, the staff. Typically, from anywhere from 2 years to 3 years to deliver the project from start to construction to the finish. Sometimes maybe 2 years, even less than that, but average like 2 to 2.5 years, maximum of 3 years. Hand over to Chad.
Thanks, Wendy. So one more thing that I do want to point out about the size, the 2 months to indefinite. Remember, we're not a first come, first serve. It's based off where you rank. We've had projects. We had a project recently, Bayfield. They had been waiting since the program got started in 2016. And I do want to give a real shout out to our staff and Simon Devlin, because we see the shortest time period in this time is responding to calls and getting out there and addressing the citizens' concern. But as you can see, there is a process to this, and we're going to go through a project where oftentimes the project is delayed because there's factors beyond our control. And this goes back to a project that was approved several years ago. This is East Jamison Road near Sheriff Road. And we've had structural flooding down in these 3 properties right here. And there was a solution that was coming off to run by this apartment complex right here on this property and tied down here to this 18-inch, which leads into a 24-inch. This property owner right here on the northeast corner of the road, they were a non-benefiter, meaning that they weren't having any issues, but under our program, they're still required to donate an easement. And that we worked with them as much as we could to try and let them know that there was some advantages to donating the easement. We thought as much as we could, but in the end, they said, we're not going to donate. We do not wish to participate. So we had to go back to the drawing board. And so we met with the residents again, even after several community meetings with these residents in this neighborhood as well, to see how they were impacted. Here's a design plan that shows the initial design going around to the property that was non-benefiter. And then we have the design to try and keep it on properties that are impacted. Why this solution wasn't thought of first was because of the impacts we see here with the trees on the neighborhood. In the driveway, they were concerned about that. But we did make a good faith effort to try and get that non-benefiter to participate. At the end of the day, if they're not willing to participate, we have to move on. We have to find another solution. But these are some examples of delays that can occur that, in my opinion, are beyond our control. We work with our partners. We are working with Raleigh Water and Parks Resources, Culture, and Recreation to try and work on some projects. I'll get into that as well here. Also, Transportation Field Services, they do a great job. I'm not sure if you remember on our last SMAC go around where we had Foxtrot Drive. Very, very minimal cost because they are going to do the project and we're going to pay for the surveying. But they're working on 3 projects right now: Columbia, Holden Street, and Foxtrot. Estimated cost savings, and that does include their time and their resources of those 3 projects will be about $90,000. So again, we are very appreciative of the work that they do and how they help us. And we are looking at 2 more projects with Transportation Field Services coming up in the next year. In-house capabilities. We also have, with the creation of the stream stabilization program, we were able to expand what we were able to do, because remember, under drainage assistance, we could only repair streams that were really immediate or close to the structure, that threatening the structure. With the stream stabilization program, now we have stream repair workshop, buffer builder bags, and plannings on smaller jobs. I'll go through some examples here in the next few slides, but I do want to point out that Dominic Smalls, who is the program manager for stream stabilization program, has done a wonderful job. If you ever go to a public meeting and you meet Dominic and you see him give out these buffer builder bags, which I love that name. It's a hit, and he's doing a great job with that program. So stream repair workshop jobs. This is great. We partner with NC State Bio-Ag, and we do core matting, core logs, straw, repairing seed mix, live stakes. These are projects that we wouldn't be able to cover under drainage systems. We're going out there in these smaller jobs and helping the homeowners out. This is the before and after, and this is the class that we had earlier this year. We see a lot of people coming to this class. So our goal is to teach residents and park staff, because what we want to do is we want to empower the residents, because there's only so much that we can do. We have limited capabilities, we have limited staff, and as you probably can figure out, there's a lot of streams, creeks, rivers on Parks property. So we have a before and after, and I love this photo here on the right, because it really shows that vegetation growing, and that's what you want to see. We have Watkins Street, 100 feet of erosion. What I really like here is the cost savings. Because of the height and the length, we can go in and do one of these stream repair workshops. We don't have to go through the design phase, the permitting, the bidding and construction, which can really drive up costs. Now, that's not to say we could do something like this on everything, on every job. We are limited in terms of NC State Bio-Agricultural availability. The scope, again, the height, how long the stream is, but we try and do these repair jobs. And the buffer builder bag, this is a first come, first served basis. These are absolutely dead. We go out to the public meetings, and these are one way that we can help people, because they say, hey, I've got a problem, but it's really not a severe problem. I have a ditch, I have a little stream. Is there something you can help me with? And under if they can't come to us 2 years ago, we would say, well, we can put you on the list with 100 people and you may be 80th. And at least we give them something to go home with, smiling faces. Here's before and after showing the buffer builder bag installation. So what we would like to do as we're addressing this backlog is have all projects that are currently approved, completed within 4 years. David Kiker's group is doing a great job with getting his project managers up to date and getting the projects out the door. To deliver projects equal or greater than each year's funding allowance. In other words, if we're allotted, for example, $1.5 million, we would like to spend at least $1.5 million between design and construction. So at least we're not losing ground. We're keeping ground or making ground. And then once projects are approved by SMAC and council, have one completed within 3 years. I thank you for your time. We'll welcome questions.
So you've approved 70, you've completed 24, that's 46 remaining. You say you're gonna do 46 in 4 years?
We would like to, yes, we would, because we would have, correct. Well, now it's not exactly 46 because some of those have been withdrawn.
Okay.
But yes, within four years, we would like, it's probably about 40 because we've had a number withdrawn or for example, East Lane Street, which started off as VA, that was in that 70, but went to CIP.
Gotcha. And you hired 3 people, correct?
Right, we've had 3 hires.
Okay. And the 10 million, 3 has been spent, started at 26. This is not adjusted for inflation. So is that, 7 million, will that do these 46 or so projects?
So those projects have been allocated and there's enough within the structure that we feel that those can be covered. Now, I will preface this by saying that we are gonna look at retooling how we allocate funds, because one of the things we're seeing is we allocate funds for that fiscal year, but oftentimes they don't get spent that fiscal year and it gets delayed. And Wayne, who wasn't here, would have elaborated a little bit on that, but how we're gonna address that in the future.
Yeah, just to add to that, what chance to throw. Yeah, fortunately, Wayne is not here today. So something that we are thinking to have, like, we're going to do the design the fiscal year. We only allocate fund to the design, not for the construction, not for everything, but just for the design portion. Then the following year for the construction. That way we can spend, money on the project that needs more money, the CIP and other projects.
What's your full staffing? Just what's your staffing tree? I mean, the DAP and the storm stream stabilization, you're over top of. Folks, I mean, yeah, I was just drawing up.
Great, so we have drainage assistance, which is Sonia, and Sonia has some staff that should go out and field the calls, Jaleesa White, Danny Hennon. And they are going out there and addressing the citizen needs that help become projects that become presented before this commission.
Okay.
And then we have Dominic Smalls, who's doing a lot of this effort, which that list of 102 would be longer if not for Dominic's efforts. And then we're hiring an in-house, we would like to have in-house capabilities with design and be a project manager. So that would be under drainage assistance. Then you may remember a few years ago when the reorganization occurred and project managers went under David Kiker and CIP. And so a lot of those project managers handle drainage systems projects.
So 6 or 7 people working on your program. Yeah, you're also getting support from David Kiker.
Right.
You have regular conversations with the property owners? Because I can imagine some of them call and ask about status. Do you get some questions?
Yes, we've got a couple of ways, as far as like the pen, because we have a few, there's different times that they'll call in, because if, for example, if they're 10th on the list, they'll ask, when am I gonna get approved? So we have a website where we keep them informed. They know they can always reach out to any of us on in staff to tell them where they stand. But as they approach SMAC, I let them know they're coming to SMAC and council. Once that happens, then it goes into the project manager stage, which is generally David Kuiper's group. They stay involved with them. They let them know the process. They let them know where they stand.
How was this? Yeah, and I guess these are all like, aren't they like $150,000, $200,000 deals, right?
Yes.
I know the bundle, it sounds like a really great idea. It's the biggest emotions in there, but you know, for 9 to 12 months of design, 12 months of construction, that this all doesn't, it doesn't, you know. Is there, I mean, I'm assuming the contractors are pre-selected. We've already, the designers are already on call, but you're trying to add some in-house to see. I mean, there's a lack of efficiency in the tail end of that process, it seems like. And I understand there's some issues. Town, and this, if Jason weren't here, he would probably say, it sounds like a downstream easement issue. You couldn't get it, he can't either. So that puts that burden right back. So I understand all the complications, but I'm just trying to, is that kind of your focus right now, is to shorten up that back end? Is that with the in-house staffing and stuff like that? Is that kind of your goal, is to take up that?
No, but in-house to do the simple project that we know you can do, expedite, like, the low hanging fruits, like the TFS or something that doesn't involve like complex design.
Yeah.
That we can tackle up in-house. That's the goal, not just to take on any project, but something that's like, simple project, right? That's the goal.
Yeah, it seems like those guys can do, certain small, stuff. I mean, they seem, could see that where they're going, there's 3 projects and stuff. Just trying to. Two and a half years from day one to the end of fixing, I don't know, just trying to.
Yeah, that's long period, yeah, and that's what we are trying to shorten, by being, not waiting for too long to, get their response or, I mean, for example, like that project that we had, that we showed. So one of the owners, he wanted us to do some favor for him to donate the easement, do some connection with the water pipes and all that, and we can't do that, so. But, we try to negotiate with him, for a long time and no result, no outcome from that. So we ended up going this route. But that's what we want to be more mindful and be a bit more aggressive and negotiate, yes, no, whatever, that shouldn't take more than, 3, 4, 5 months. But no, don't want to wait for 1 year, back and forth.
To see planning in a problem.
Well, part of it is 4 months you have to put it out for bid. So that eats up a window right there.
That's how do we solve that problem, right? David Kiker should have a bunch of on-call people to do this work, right?
And that also we are trying to shorten that, the 4 months, that's like in general, 4 to 5 months. But you can do it in 3 months, that's the target. But we want to under promise, over deliver. So, that, okay, we are going to do that in 1.5 years and then it's going to take 2.5, 3 years. So that's why we have that, but our goal is to do that in a shorter time than that, for each shot. Yeah. And that's the org chart that is actually just talking about. So, it's actually not clear enough. Right? Can you see it also there?
That's the lowest. I just curious what kind of staff you have. It sounds like you have.
Yeah, we have clear.
Just trying to add to it. So.
Yeah, that's it. You all can see that, right? So
Money's on the left-hand side of it.
yeah, so we are here, so that's Chad's team and that's David. Yeah, we both work together. I think the whole division works together. For that matter, we have PM here that you can see here. 5 senior engineers, and we had Eric here. This one, so. And again, we are also discussing about restructuring this to make it more meaningful and more efficient for delivery. So CIP and the DA team, they all work together, and all the CIP PM, they have the DA project section. So the PM that the Chaz is going to hire will have only the DA project. So it can take like 8, 10 projects. That will help.
Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Anything else?
Next one, we.
We won't talk, anything to come out.
I just said on the possible preliminary topic for January, February would be adding the homework design. So everything else.
We have a motion to adjourn. Mr. Bonnefield, is there a second? No, thanks, good job. All in favor? All right, have a fantastic holiday and a good new year.
Thank you.
Thank you.